Hey Nicole, alright, so here's your past life spread. So what we're going to do is look at where you are, what you did with the majority of your time there, an important day with the relationship and the feelings involved, another important day with the relationships and the feelings, the death and lesson learned. And we'll get hints of time throughout. Though I do want to say it's already feeling like we're going to very far in history. So all I'm going to do is relay to you the impressions and images that are coming through. And your job is going to be to try to make connections where you can based off what might be coming through in your current life. And I'll try to help with connections too. Just keep in mind that you could be making direct connections, which means whatever comes through here could be directly reflecting what's going on in your life, or it can be opposite, where what you experienced here, your soul is already done experiencing, and so you come back wanting to experience the opposite. So it could be something as easy to, as gender, you were male here, female here. Or it can be something even just like a preference of weather or whatever it is. So just keep an open mind and just make connections where you can. All right. So to start, we're going to start here at the island card. So this card, it can mean like Fiji and Hawaii, like how we think of islands all the time, that kind of thing, like tropical paradise. But also, Australia is an island and Japan is an island. And so there's different ways that this card can come through, as well as how it feels like it's a little bit coming through here, which is kind of the feeling of an isolated life. So it feels like this aspect of you that we're looking at is someone that is rather isolated, keeps himself isolated, feels like, and we're looking at a male aspect as well. So it just feels like someone that I guess you would call maybe an introvert. So in your current life, even like a small connection with that could be in your current life, are you more of an extrovert? Because this person experienced what feels like a rather solitary life. So in your current life, you might have come back to either one directly, that would explain any tendencies you have to be an introvert or stay inside or be alone, but at the same time your soul could be back to experience like a more social aspect of living. So if you find that you're someone that deals with people, let's say for your work or whatever, it's a person-to-person kind of thing, not behind a computer kind of thing, that would be a connection. Just simply choosing to work in that kind of environment, that would put you in a sociable kind of way. So if that's a connection, there's that, and if not, that's fine. Another aspect could be simply the island card. So this could be where you have always been pulled to go to an island, to it could be vacation. So let's say you're someone that sees islands, photos of islands, and that's like, oh, I want to go there, versus someone might see, let's say, the main, like the Grand Canyon or mountains, and someone would be pulled to that kind of vacation, you see. So it could be a connection like that. However, I do want to say that this island doesn't feel like a typical like tropical Hawaiian Polynesian-y kind of thing. It feels more like we're looking at a place that is, it appears like less bright. So it's almost like there's more cloud coverage and there's mountains and it's kind of dark, and I can't tell if it's just like gloomy there or if it's like the feel of the way the people there or whatever it is. But it was just a weird, because the image they're giving me for this male is like this large male who spends a lot of time inside. It's almost like, it almost feels like we're looking at a security guard kind of guy who spends time indoors, and there's no like feel of going out much. It's almost like his work makes him stay indoors. So even these things that are coming through right here, just connections you can make. Are you someone that likes to be out in the sun? Are you someone that needs fresh air? Do you need to ever feel like you need to escape, as in just like go outside, get some fresh air? That would be a connection here, because it feels like the life he lives is mostly kind of indoors, maybe even stuffy kind of thing, when it's like not, it doesn't feel like everybody is living that way where he's from. This feels, hold on. It's kind of interesting because it has like Mediterranean and Latin aspects like put together in this culture, or in how they look, or even like where this is. If there's like, it feels like if this were an island, it would be in the Mediterranean area somewhere, but almost like maybe even off of Spain, possibly, or off of, where is that? Is that is Portugal along the coast? I don't know. But if you look at those islands, maybe around there, starting from Spain going down into the Mediterranean area. I mean, I know that's like a big area to explore here, but this place would have like Mediterranean aspects and Latin aspects, kind of like a fusion of sorts, is what it feels like. So it also feels like there is like a very large community at this time, but it feels like, again, we're going like way back in time. So what's a large community there to us might seem small, but it does feel like there's a little like civilization here that has grown, and there's something about, it's almost like you're keeping guard over the jewels, or you're keeping guard over something that's valuable and priceless. And it might even be like something having to do with the worship aspect, but there's something very like material about it too, that's visually like appealing. It's like it's very aesthetic. So any connection with this just would be like a direct connection would be if you chosen work that has to do with, it's kind of dual, because the so it's almost like it doesn't even have to be work. It's more about like protectiveness. It doesn't feel like security guard, unless that's a connection for you. But he is a security guard here. But in your current life, it's more about like, there's something that about this thing that's so aesthetic that it makes someone like him give up a life to have a career guarding this thing. So it could be that you yourself find yourself into aesthetics. There's something about like the word aesthetics, like something where it's about like either art, I guess, art, or even like the beautification process of like, are you someone that likes to like take old furniture and revamp it, like that kind of thing? There's something about the aesthetic. You might be into architecture, or just something very artistic but structural as well, it feels like. So if that calls to you in any way, if that's a connection, great. If not, that's fine. That's just what's coming through. But this can also speak to a personality that would be protective or secretive. Kind of like, are you good at keeping secrets? Are you, would you consider loyalty to be something like a word that really describes you, or that's important to you? Theme of loyalty, protection, security. It almost feels like there's something that would be about you that would want to feel security, like a structure, like a good foundation or security. This can be like speaking about, like, it could be like, oh, security, like finances, but it can also be about like, are you someone that makes sure you have a security company watching your home? Like, is that important to you? Is safety, security, protection? Yeah, like almost like do you have a constant feeling like you're guarding something valuable? Like that kind of thing is what it feels like is coming through. And if so, great. If not, that's fine. Just whatever you don't connect with, just tuck in the back of your mind, because sometimes things come up. But there's also a message in that to, while it's good to have security, there's something about making sure that you do like let people in that feel right and good to you. As far as like if it takes a while for people to warm up and get close to you, that kind of thing, there might be some people that you feel don't need like the extra barriers, and that's okay. It's almost like trust that, you know, you need to learn to let people in, the right people in, and like, I guess quickly, because you should be able to read their energy. It's like having good judgment, I guess, for lack of better words. It's having good judgment, but it's a little beyond that. It's being able to like feel them, you know, like, are you someone that's really good at feeling people out? That kind of thing. That would be a connection to this. So keep making connections where you can. I mean, this can simply even be if you're drawn to, if you like wearing jewelry. Like, I'm not an accessory person. If you're an accessory person, I know that sounds kind of random, but there's something about this stuff here being valuable and beautiful, and like, it doesn't matter if it's even like a man back in ancient times. There's something about him like wanting to like be around it. So make connections there where you can. Also, I do want to mention too, because this guy feels like he's inside. Do you have claustrophobia, or claustrophobia? Do you feel what's it called? Like, do you not like going underground? Do you not like the idea of like going through a maze or a tunnel or something like that? So basically, like, it just feels like he was in this like stuffy location for a long time. It's almost like, almost like by torchlight kind of thing. So it would make sense if you were someone that had problems being enclosed, or being in a stuffy room. Like, that might, like, it can even be the kind of thing where you have trouble breathing if the room is too stuffy. Just very sensitive to that, and it's okay if you are, and if not, that's fine. But these are just things that might come through and explain certain aspects of you that you might have been curious about. But that's what's coming through here. I feel like there's one more thing about that. What was it? Oh, torchlight dark. Okay. So something also about, being in it was almost like a locked chamber kind of thing. Or like right outside of it, whatever it was. It felt like there's a lot of darkness aspect where a lot of light you got was torchlight. So if you have vision problems in your life, that could be a connection as well, because of like just, it did like massive strain on his eyes is what it feels like. So if you have any vision issues, that would be one thing. And then the other thing would be not liking the dark. So if you're someone, you just, I guess maybe as a kid, if you were scared of the dark, or you just still don't like being in the dark, that would be a connection as well. And if not, that's fine. So let's go to the first important day here. So here we have the move, 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 get out card, and usually that means, or it's like get out and let's go. Someone's either moving away, or you're moving, or there's just movement happening. And then the relationship card is the friends card, and that can mean friends, that can mean family. That's friends like family. Just feeling out the strength of it. And then the feelings here is neutral. So I'm trying to see what is happening. And okay, so it feels like it almost feels like there is some kind of thing in the ground that's erupting, like either your island where you are has a volcano on it, or it gets earthquakes, or something with the earth just moving and being very effective physically, like letting everyone know like it's not happy or something's coming kind of thing. So it feels like there is the movement of the community almost like to safer grounds, just in case, because they're reading the earth, they're reading the land, and it feels like you don't go because your job is, you have a duty, but it's almost like even if they were going to transfer all that, whatever it is you're watching over, if they were to transfer it, you don't get to go until it's completely all transferred. So either one, they're transferring it, or two, there's also the feeling of it being kept in a very like sacred spot. So it's almost like the mindset almost feels too like, let's keep we'll just call it the crown jewels let's just call it that. Let's keep the crown jewels here, and if it gets buried by lava or the earth swallows it or whatever, then so be it. That's what's meant to be. Like, so let's keep it there, but in keeping it in that sacred spot, you stayed there as well. So it's almost like, more than anything, it feels like there's like constant rumbling, like constant earthquakes almost. And it's like very likely, it feels like it's connected to a volcano something, but it's almost like, I feel like it doesn't go off. I feel like it's just like sending out like the alerts, like it's just like rumbling, and your people was like, okay, better safe than sorry, let's go there, let's go this way. So they move that way, and it feels like they come back. But it feels like you're kind of kept there, and it's like they come and feed you and do all that, but it's like you're kept there for on your own even more. So it's like it went from isolated to like completely almost like quarantined. So there's like these levels of aloneness and loneliness and isolation that we're seeing in this reading, just like it keeps kind of getting a little deeper. So if you find that you have any depression, or if you find that you are someone that feels alone in a crowd, or sometimes, like, even though we talked about you being more sociable in this life because of this isolation thing, do you still feel in some way isolated when you are with people even? And it almost like maybe you feel like the observer or something like that. And if not, that's fine. But this would explain it, is what it is. So if you do find, and like I say depression because sometimes this feeling can cause depression, or it's social anxiety. So even social people have social anxiety. You can still be like, you know, an extrovert, introvert, like that kind of thing. So if you find that you have social anxiety of any kind, and if it does also, you know, if it links to this idea of like feeling alone, even if you're with someone, you know, you can be in a relationship with someone and still feel alone if you're not on the same page, you know, that kind of thing. But if that ever affects you, just know that it would be a connection to this like deeply isolated life that an aspect of you experienced, right? So I'm just going to use this as an example, that let's say there are aspects in here you identify with that you think, oh, this doesn't serve me anymore, this has no use in my life, I can't learn from it anymore, like a certain thing, like let's say social anxiety from this, right? Just like as an example. Then what you can do, if you realize, oh, that's where it comes from and I don't need it anymore, you can get into a deep meditation, you can get someone to facilitate hypnosis. There are guided meditations on YouTube that can facilitate like healing from past trauma, things like that. And you can literally, your mind will help like wash that out of your current system, so that you'll react differently in certain situations where once you might have been, again, socially feeling like the loner in the crowd, you might start to react differently where you feel like you actually kind of fit in and things are, you know, like that kind of thing. So that's just an example of what you can do when you do find an aspect here that you vibe with, that you might want to get rid of or whatever, or look more into. Because you have the ability to tap into this just as much as I do. So keep that in mind. But let's go to the next important day here. So keep making connections here with the moving card. Oh, this can also be if you're someone that you don't do well with change. That would make sense because, again, of the kind of constant solid, like sedentary life, standing there kind of thing. It feels like he was in one place for a long time. So if it's hard for you to adjust or change things in your lifestyle or whatever, this would come from here. But at the same time, because of this, it can also mean that in your current life, all you want to do is change. You just want to see constant like movement, or maybe you move around a lot, or maybe the idea of living in different places excites you. Maybe you're pulled to travel, maybe you're pulled to just move. Like if you're like, oh yeah, basically, you know, Pilates classes or dancing or athletics or whatever, if you like to move, that would, I know that sounds kind of weird because I guess like who doesn't like to, I guess, move, but there are people. But yeah, so just keep in mind with those connections as well, because this person did not move a lot. So I guess that can even speak if you could be someone that just likes to hang out for a while, and then someone that likes to get up and go. It could be both aspects. But yeah, generally we're also looking at like what you feel, how you feel about rooting down to one place, living your whole life. Like, are you someone that wants to be part of a community, you know, where everyone knows everyone, small town kind of thing? Or are you someone, again, that likes the idea of maybe like going from here to there and not really, I guess, having an identity in a certain community, but just kind of moving through life in that way, you know, because there are two very different feelings to that kind of living. So I don't know, just however you may connect to that. It's coming up for some reason. I do want to mention though that the neutral card is important here only because this person had to do a lot of stuff with his mind in order to get through the day-to-day because it was so boring and difficult and long. So there's a lot of stuff that he might have done to his own mind. So as far as like, do you spend time in your mind? Are you actively in your imagination a lot, where you can be so like focused in on either what you're imagining or what you're doing, like for like, let's say you're doing something creative or whatever, where someone might call your name and you don't hear them because you're so zoned into whatever you're doing, that kind of thing. That would be a connection as well. Just because it feels like he spent a lot of time in his mind trying to make, I guess, things interesting. But this can also mean that this can also be the kind of thing where he tunes out reality. So just need to mention, if you tune out reality, such as possibly being in denial about certain things of your life that you're not happy about, that you don't want to touch base with, this is coming up just as a message. Like, you're eventually going to have to kind of touch base with everything about, you know, whatever's going on in your life, where you can be real with yourself, because that's going to ultimately be the best thing. But it might get hard. It might be hard to get through when you do, you know, approach certain things about your life or whatever. But ultimately, you do want to make sure that you're happy and that things are running smoothly, that you're surrounding yourself with the right people, that kind of thing. So keep that in mind, that that's important, and not to, again, it goes back to like, just be real with yourself, be real with what's going on, and just be true to yourself, that kind of thing. Like, be honest with yourself. There you go. But the next important day here, keep making connections, read again. The next important day here is marriage. So we're looking at a marriage card, and we're looking at this as the karmic card. And then this is kind of like a melancholy, lonely day. And honestly, what this feels like, it feels like this is taking care of, it's kind of all-encompassing as far as who you are and the remainder of your days. So the marriage card does not mean you get married. I feel like we're looking at someone here that actually was like, couldn't marry or couldn't have sexual relations or anything like that. It feels like it just feels like it's part of the job. So you might be someone in your life that has always desired love or desired companionship or partnership, even to the point where maybe you just prefer to be in a relationship than not, just because of the companionship. And that might be very important to you. In fact, that might be the most important aspect to you in a relationship, is the companionship, is someone that you feel won't abandon you and also is on the same page as far as wanting to communicate with you, or simply wants to just be there, like where you're just, even if you're sitting together in the same room, something about having a presence there, you might find extremely comforting, and that's okay. You know, some people, you read about like, hey, be happy with yourself before you're in a relationship with, you know, like that kind of stuff, and it's like, that doesn't apply to everyone. You know, like, don't doubt yourself if you ever wonder like, yeah, I have always been in a relationship, maybe I need, you know, time alone or something. It's like, no, you don't, like, you're fine, you know what you need. And based off this guy that we're looking at, it would be very normal, or like it would make a lot of sense if you do find that you are like, that you found like just like that relationship, like a very all-encompassing, loving, good relationship. It just feels like it's like coming to you. If you're not in it already, it feels like a very wonderful like person is gonna at least be there for a long time, if not for the rest of the time, kind of thing. Because it feels like it's almost like, yeah, you earned it. Like, that's what it feels like based off of this life we're looking at here, just like how isolated it was and like loveless. It's like, nope, this time you're back, there's gonna be a lot of love there. So keep that in mind, and you know, if you haven't found that person, then that person is there, like, just, it's happening. And otherwise maybe you already found that person. But yeah, again, looking for the companionship as the big thing. So how, I guess I just didn't even explain this. Basically, it's like your marriage is the karmic connection, is the karmic bond you have with the job that you are sacrificing your life for. And the feeling here of loneliness, melancholy, is just, that's everything. So this is your life. You're married to the job. So in your current life, you might find that you're a workaholic, and that's okay. That if it makes you feel good to be working constantly. But if you do find that would be a connection. If not, that's fine. In fact, if you're not, that could be the opposite, where this person was on guard at all times, almost like a 24-hour thing, where he lived and breathed his work. It's possible it came back where instead of a workaholic, you're someone that needs to take a step back and you know your limits and you balance very well. Are you someone that's really balanced as far as work and maybe family and maybe your hobbies, you know, like that kind of thing? That would make a lot of sense too. But just know, because there's the karmic card here, that if you do find that you are continuing this lesson of, I hate to say workaholic, but it's just, that's the word, you know, just like really like putting, being ultimately dedicated to your career, that's great. It's just there's a message that you've already done that here, so just make sure that you're taking this life to cater to things that are less like duty and more like fun, so to speak, because this is like living a task. You just want to make sure that for work, it's not like you're living a task. Like this lifetime, it feels like your work should be like, it should be like opposite of this. Like it should be like creative, and it's like what he was guarding, he really was interested in. It's like that he should have done something with that, if that makes sense. It's like, so instead of the pretty side of things, he was on the boring, like duller side of things. So here it makes sense that you would come back to do something creative, or even I want to say even pretty, if that makes sense. But creative and something where you're moving, you're doing, like it's all involving. So if you're thinking of changing a career, maybe even like following your own creative drive, that would be really, I would say that feels really good, and something that would, I think, reward you very well ultimately if you stick with it. It's just what it feels like, again, because of like all the lack he had in this life. It's like you should be just kind of tapping into your creative drive and doing what you want. Yeah, so it feels like that 9 to 5 like cubicle-ish kind of thing, if that's the case with you. If you're thinking of getting out of that or not, if that just repulses you, that would make a lot of sense, is what I'm saying. So yeah, so it doesn't really give us another day, it just gives us like the rest of the time. Like nothing really exciting happens here. And sometimes they show us these lives where nothing exciting happens, just to also show us that like lives can be very simple but meaningful. Look at all the lessons he's learning by doing nothing. Look at all the lessons your soul has learned by just standing there and staying put and being on guard. And you know, there's this whole like being true to your word, being a person of honor, integrity, you know, standing by your word or whatever it is. And so all those things, if you connect with any of that, if that's your personality, the integrity and loyalty and all that good stuff, you know, that would make a lot of sense too, because that's what the soul feels like that he learned here. So let's go to the death card. Keep making connections where you can with this. And the death card here. So this is the murder, it's technically the murder card, but sometimes, you know, we see like people murdering themselves, and it's all about intention with this card. Sometimes it's accidental murder, it's just the intention was there to kill someone, but it wasn't the right person. So when I laid this down, actually, I remember what it felt like, and it felt like something like the conclusion of your duty to protect whatever comes because you're just too old to do it, right? So it feels like there's some kind of weird like honor in like ending your own life to make way for the new protector, the younger protector that will take over your position. So it's almost like an honor death. So there's intention there, but it is like a self-inflicted or allowed death. So which is interesting. So you might, how this connects with you possibly is you might be very fearful of failure, and you might be someone that really fears aging or getting older. Maybe it doesn't feel right, or there's a weird fear about it or insecurity, and that it would come from here. It just feels like, because he, you know, everyone that takes this position knows ultimately they're going to, unless they keel over unexpectedly, they're going to have to make way for the new protector as soon as they find that they're like too old, they feel like they're not strong, whatever it is. And it usually isn't like super old that they live. So So there's this card would just indicate some kind of fear you might have about not making it, not succeeding, even a feeling of like, oh, I feel like I'm going to die young, like if you've ever had that feeling. It's not indicative of what will happen. It's just that those are thoughts that you might have just based on how this guy had to leave. So what else is there? You might also be, if you find that you're allergic to certain medicine, or allergic or sensitive to certain drinks, maybe alcohol or food. Anyway, any of those sensitivities or allergies or whatever would make sense too, because it feels like to die there was it was almost maybe like poison or something like that. So when we see someone that ingests something in other lives and dies that way, a lot of times they come back with like a sensitivity to a food or a drink or a certain chemical in a medicine or anything like that. So that would explain that. But keep making connections where you can here. And let's see what else. Okay, so we're going to go to the lesson card. So here, this is the experience card. And with the experience card, what it feels like it's referring to is a couple of things. One, it's everything you didn't experience, right? This is your life, and it's dull, and it's boring, and it's awful, and, because it's just so boring. So, like, let's just be real here. So that, there's nothing you experience outside of that at the same time, even as dull and boring as this is, you still experienced so much. Like, we just did a whole reading on a guy who basically stood in the same spot his whole life, you see? And there's so much about that. So there was experiences. So it's almost like there's this cool little message in here, and like, don't take the moments for granted, like any moment, because you don't know what you're learning, because a lot of it is in hindsight. So you just have to trust that in every moment you're living, even the dull ones, even the ones where nothing seems like it's happening, in years, past, let the years pass, look back, and you might have been learning, patience, or just like how to go with the flow, or, you know what I mean? Like, there's something in everything. So it's almost like, again, don't take things for granted. Try to find kind of like the lesson in everything, in the way of like, everything is an experience. So if you find yourself bored with life, or wanting something else, or just like unhappy in a certain way, maybe you feel stagnant, maybe you feel like nothing's going on, like you're in limbo or whatever, that's when you come back to the present moment and you realize this is a moment. This is one of those weird teachable moments when nothing's happening. I feel this way, but I know that this is happening for a reason. So what's in it? Like, what can I find in this moment? And that's really good, just to practice being present, because when you're present, you're really able to kind of immerse yourself in the experience of life a lot more, rather than, moving ahead to the future, thinking of the future in that way, or dwelling in the past. You want to move forward. So it's just with these readings that we bring the past forward a bit, just to look into, to see how we might connect, what we can learn from it in that way, and then we just, it goes back into where it needs to go, and hopefully you just bring forward all the wonderful connections that you were able to make today. So keep making connections though with this card too, the experience card. It does feel like you are meant to experience life. I'm not saying like, oh, be an adrenaline junkie and like risk your life all the time. No, it's more like having the experiences of life that he didn't get to have, that can simply just be having a family, simply be getting married or falling in love, or, but again, I say simply, and those things are like tremendous and beautiful and amazing in themselves. So it's like, just don't take those moments for granted, and really, like, live your life as fully as you want. Cherishing those moments where you're not, this life is done, so you're not stuck anywhere anymore. You can move around. So it's just like, kind of like that message overall is like, get out there and do stuff. Make sure you're happy. Make sure you're doing what you want to do, but you're out there doing it. And I guess the very last thing is the time period. I know I didn't get to like mention anything except ancient, and it feels ancient. And so I really can't give you like, numbers, but it feels like guessed. Like when I was laying this down, at first I couldn't tell if we were in ancient Egypt, like in a pyramid tunnel kind of thing, or somewhere else. So that's basically what I'm going to leave you with, is why it feels ancient, because that's what it felt like. So anyway, there is your past life. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're able to make some connections, and thanks for letting me read you.